Welcome back to another week at For Your Reference podcast.
Ooh, it's a sexy substitute. Thank you, OT. Welcome, friends and lovers. That also means that you have some homework that you need to do before you listen to this episode. Vikings is well loved and well lauded in the For Your Reference podcast. It is also our second released episode of this podcast in 2019. So if you really love us, make sure you love us before you listen to that episode. But we will be covering season 6 this week. Take the show away. Skull, betrayal-loving friends and lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And OT.
Choose your adventure as we grow roots, set sail, and uncover familial betrayal with the 6th and final season of the series, Vikings. Ooh. This is the time to say spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Otherwise, Valhalla, Valhalla, Valhalla.
Wow.
I grew a beard just in that.
See it.
You're my beard.
Wow.
Again, friends and lovers, we have covered the first 5 seasons of Vikings. This is definitely going to be the Last Dance All-Stars after party lounge where we just sip on some good old things and, relive the gloriousness that is this TV series.
It's the final countdown.
It is absolutely the final countdown, and we are going to hold on to this series just like that extra that was trying to fight Athelwolf many seasons ago. You're most welcome, friends and lovers, and there's so much more banter in our second episode if you want to go and check that out. This series is one of, if not the best, History Channel series. Amazon Prime did release the second half of season 6, so I'm not sure what that means in regards to ownership rights. Season 6 was premiered in December of 2019, with the latter half of that season being released in December of 2020. We have a whole slew of directors that I just want to give an amazing accolading shout out. Steve St. Ledger, David Frangi, Daniel Grew, Helen Shaver, Patty Brethneck, as well as our ever-eternal Catherine Winnick directing one episode.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! We fucking love. We don't love The Big Sky. We do watch it, but this is where we prefer Catherine Winnick. And then we also have writer extraordinaire Michael Hurst. If you are familiar with Vikings, you know he is the OG. He is the one that we sploosh at every altar every week when Vikings was coming out. 2 of his daughters was featured in the show as well, most notably Torvi. Lovely, lovely Torvi. So like we mentioned, History Channel and also Amazon Prime, top billing cast, Catherine Winnick, Gustav Skarsgård, as well as Alexander Ludwig. All right, OT, let's get into it. Let's talk about our first impressions. And I guess now that we are closing the series, how did you feel experiencing the final series and just the end of it?
It was emotional.
Oh, absolutely.
It was very emotional for me. I think a lot of the things that same characters that you've loved and you've seen through the years and the story coming to a close, you expected at least some aspects of the storyline was predictable, granted, but it didn't take away from the emotional payoff. I found myself fully tearing when watching Lagatha or Bjorn die, and it's one of those things that just hit you. You saw it coming a miles off. It made sense, but watching it was a different thing.
And you deserve that verbal punch if you haven't fucking watched Vikings and you're still fucking listening, friends and lovers.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. There's nothing more special in a watching experience than being able to delve into a world where you've come to love and want to see characters grow and form and fall down and get back up. And Vikings was really that series for us.
Mm-hmm.
I do it because I have a lot of cheek and I like to show my cheek a lot. Whenever there's Game of Thrones, I always like to throw Vikings in there. But I truly do mean it. I love Vikings more than Game of Thrones. And, you know, the whole fire and brimstone I have is still existent with Daenerys, but you know, like Vikings will forever be that lovely place in my heart. I think it goes Spartacus, Vikings, and everything the fuck else. But in regards to the sixth and final season of Vikings, you call it predictable, and I say it is satisfying in its journey and in its success in being able to tie stories and give us satisfying arcs.
Agreed.
Because they weren't all going to live on, right? We were accepting the fact that everyone was going to meet their demise, usually self-inflicted, usually, self-fulfilling, much to OT's favorite character, the seer. We know where we're going to go, but it's in a way that we want it to happen, right? I love how every character got their own moment in the final season. You know, as much as we say that we didn't want it to end, I think OT and I are more pragmatic in regards to shows, and we also don't want it to continue more than it needs to. So we're accepting of the fact that our characters are not going to make it, but they will continue to live on in our hearts, shall we say.
Oh, for sure.
Every character got beautiful spotlight and attention on them. And, you know, the best sort of final seasons, as well as just seasons in general, but the best final seasons of a TV show are already wrapping up before the last episode. Mm-hmm. We haven't covered Gangs of London yet, but I definitely have that specific feedback in regards to that show. But when a show is ending and you can start to see it on the horizon that the show is ending, there shouldn't really be any sort of surprises in the final sort of episodes. It should really be, I guess as you say, not in a pejorative way, but it is predictable because that means we're going to get to a wholehearted, satisfying end.
Yeah, it's not the moment to do script flips in as much as we love those.
That's a Cleveland show reference, friends and lovers.
it's those things that, especially after you've experienced the world for such a long period of time and you've grown to love the characters and you know exactly the storyline and all that it entails and how, from taking into account how the CF were told, their futures and everything else, from them interacting with each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that I think Vikings has really done such a brilliant job at.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we are talking about the final season, but when you have a firm foundation in Ragnar, of course, you know, you can feel the essence of him living on, specifically in regards to his sons.
Yeah, and I think one of the things when you're speaking about Travis and Ragnar,
wow, you said it like you're best friends with him. You just head out the back,
Travis.
Head out the back and have a scooey.
Yeah, one of the things that you learn, like especially when he left, I do not feel like there'll be a gap. You know, usually when big shows lose their star lead, there's a gap, there's a hole. And most of the time, you don't really bond or gel with the show as much. But they did such a good job interweaving Lagatha into the storyline and making her such a prominent figure and one that you'd cling on and want to see what the future holds for her, especially in the world that they were living in and what they had painted the world to be. What stood for Lagatha being one of the, fast female Viking warriors.
Yeah,
Or shield maidens.
If you're nasty. Are you also trying to say, OT, that I'm Ragnar and you're Lagertha and the podcast can exist without me? How dare you?
Facts.
How dare you? You sound like an Athelstan mistress, you motherfucker.
We love a good Athelstan.
We do not. But yeah, I look back very fondly on this series, and it was nice to relive this series. A lot of the time, especially when we're talking about TV shows, I do like continuing to stay in the world. So don't worry about me. Mind your business. If you saw my first comments on HBO Nordic, watching all of the Viking Q&A lives, just mind your business, kids. Ignore Katie's thirsting on Instagram. I also do want to thank all of our friends and lovers that have been with us since we've started the podcast, and maybe Vikings is how you found us. But I also just want to thank everyone generally, because we did release that in February of 2019 and we consistently still get downloads to this day of Vikings. I do hope it's not the first episode they listen to, because the audio is a bit...
How's it going? But, we grow. Just the same way we've had huge character development with Lagertha and the brothers, our podcast crew.
Oh, nice. Look at you, OT. That's full character development on OT, friends and lovers. Let's get into the show and let's spend some time giving our fictional flowers to characters that we've known and grown to love over the years. Obviously, we are going to be starting off with Lagertha.
One of the favorites.
One of the favorites, absolutely. I think, like you were saying, I think a lot of the time you do wonder whether, she'll be treated with the same level of prestige and adoration as Ragnar, because Ragnar was such a huge figure, not just in Kattegat, but throughout all of Norway, right? But Lagertha got one of the most beautiful send-offs that I've ever seen in television history. It was gorgeous, it was beautiful, and it was emotional.
Yeah, we had a lot of fast and loose moments with Lagertha as to whether or not she was going to die and what moment she was going to die.
Yeah.
For me, I thought it would come earlier when she, especially during the Risma's him and character arc, where I thought, this is a moment where we'd see Lagertha fall in love and possibly die out of, the results of that. But we kept on getting, she survived.
Yeah.
She was taken back. She went back to Kattegat. Someone healed her. But then, and then she wanted to find something new, something better. And it was always back and forth. And I didn't really understand how this would end for her and whether or not she'll find the peace or whatever she was looking for. But we come to see her give one last push.
Yeah.
One last thing that should leave as legacy. Teaching all the women in the camp to defend themselves.
And the children. She had them ready for possible situations.
Yeah. That was the most Lagertha thing they could have done.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the opposite. Go and check out our Key and Peele episode, Friends and Lovers. But it's like that sketch where Jordan Peele's character has retired and he thinks they want him out of retirement. It was the opposite, because Lagertha was retired, but naturally she had the skills and she has that charisma and people just want to warm to her and get to know her, right? How do you feel that she died at the hands of one of Ragnar's sons?
Yeah, a doped up Hitvik stabbed her multiple times thinking that it was Ivar.
Also, the fact that, Ragnar many, many, many times, but in the specific time, he stepped out and stayed in a marriage, right, with Åslaug. So to have the new iteration of his seed kill her, that, I don't know if it's poetic, but it was definitely tragic.
It was tragic, but it was foretold. We always knew that it was going to be a son of Ragnar that will be the end of Lagertha. And for it to be Hitvik being doped up, I always assumed it would be Ivar, because Ivar was so close to Åslaug.
Yeah.
And I thought he always swore that he'd kill Lagertha the first chance he gets.
Yeah.
So for it to be Hitvik, who was a bit laid back in that approach, he did appreciate, of course, definitely Åslaug was a mother. He was sad. there wasn't that strong emotion towards seeking revenge.
Yeah. But I think that's what made it more aggravating. I think it was more frustrating because it's like, pull your head in, mate. What the fuck are you doing? This is our Lagatha, our ever-eternal Lagatha. How dare you?
But we'd spent a solid 10 episodes then dealing with Hitzvik's doped up state.
Yeah.
Where it was just super annoying to me.
Everyone.
It was super annoying to me seeing him waste about just not doing anything for the show and just being in this state throughout. You know, it was just a matter of you either pull your head in, do something about it, or sadly to say, just walk out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So it was really frustrating. It was really frustrating, and it was hard to get through that scene because the writing was on the wall, and as you said, it was foretold. If I guess you can ask us later how OT and I do the Sia role play outside of the podcast. But yeah, so we knew it was happening, and it was hard to get through that scene. But what then follows is the procession of paying legacy and life to Lagatha, which was absolutely, it was visually stunning.
Yeah,
as well. There was nothing more. It's definitely one of the landmarks in this series.
Oh, and I think the most tearjerker moment for me was Bjorn making it just in time.
Oh, baby Bjorn, how dare you grow into such a strong Blair Underwood Ironside?
Wow. Yeah, that was one of the, like, he knew something was up. Immediately got there, he sensed Lagatha died.
Hurry.
Like, yeah, something's fucked up just happened. And when he got there, he knew. No one needed to tell him. And I was like, yeah, that was a moment for the fans.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the purest things, reflecting on Bjorn's relationship with Lagatha as well as Ragnar.
Well, he chose to go with Lagatha as a kid.
He did. There were so many beautiful flashback scenes in the final season. And call it fan service. I call it OT spanking my ass. But I absolutely love Lagatha, and I love how they treated her story arc with so much respect, and she deserved so much because we knew there was going to be a war between the brothers. So it was nice to just lay Lagatha to rest, let her have her moment, and then completely fall into the mud in Rampage.
Fully agreed. I think one of the most disappointing things for me is that I knew probably this was never on the cards, but what if just all the fucking brothers got along?
No. And that would be a disservice to the show because they're all distinct individual characters except for Ube. He was a terrible carbon copy.
Come on now.
Hey, like you said when we covered Snowfall, at least I'm consistent in how I felt about the characters when we first recorded our episode of Vikings. But let's go through the sons of Ragnar. And I guess as we're talking about each son and the proximity characters, let's see what we think sort of traits that they inherited from Ragnar. So, of course, we're going to start with King Bjorn Blair Underwood Ironside. This is going to confuse historians if this is the only record of Vikings, the TV show, in the future.
He definitely got the warrior sort of chops from Ragnar. He's not, and the venturing spirit and the venturing sort of adventure spirit from Rollo, who I think might be the dad.
Yeah, we did talk about Daddy Rollo.
Daddy Rollo, indeed.
We did talk about him. Why did you mention that? I hate that his storyline just fucking fizzled. It bothers me.
They did bring him back only for him to be chased away like, we don't need you, mate.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah, I don't know.
I expected season 6 to be a year where we saw at least a bit more Rollo and what he would do with the brothers, or at least with Bjorn, because we know how close they were.
He was so Viking, though. Like, at points, he felt more Viking than Ragnar.
I definitely expected him to play a bigger part. It was disappointing that he came, and I think one of the aspects or the angle they're trying to play is maybe he was the father. And Lagatha did step out on Ragnar, which he did, but
All right.
well, it's not like Ragnar didn't do it. Ragnar did it a million times.
When you're out in Norway, don't think I'm not.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those rare but unfortunate moments in regards to characters that we wanted to flesh out a little bit more. But in regards to Bjorn, we have followed baby Bjorn since the start of this series. And to see him grow into the man that he became and the immortalized man and legend that he will continue to live on, at least on TV screens, I think he was dutifully addressed in every way.
He was. And I think a lot of the times we had more of a connection, or at least for me, I had more of a connection with Bjorn than I did with the other brothers.
Agree.
Just because he was always there from the start of the show, and having that sort of storyline and character background with him interacting with other people, there was always that connection that it was always him that was meant to lead.
So let's talk about what we think was inherited from Ragnar. I don't necessarily agree. I wouldn't say that Bjorn is the best warrior out of the sons.
I'd say he is. Hands down.
That's a tasty cliffhanger. I'm not going to say which son it is until we get to that son. I think that Bjorn has the gusto. He has the plumo o plata. He has the cojones. But I don't think he's the best warrior in regards to the brothers.
Mate, what are you watching?
I'm watching Narcos.
What knockoff version of Vikings are you watching?
The dumb one that tried to be funny.
Wow.
That was terrible. That's Cleveland again. I wouldn't say he's the biggest warrior. I would say he is the most brave of Ragnar's sons. He is willing to take a leap without knowing that there's a safety net there. That's what I would say that Bjorn has inherited. And also the ability to bring people together. You know, most famously in the final episodes where he is able to reunite all of Norway. And even on a smaller scale, when he came back to Kattegat and his own men that he used to fight with side by side started attacking him. And he's like, what are you doing? You're my brothers. What are we doing here? That was fucking powerful. He has the ability to appeal to his common man non-toxically, right? But toxically, he does have a Terrence Howard nature to him that he got from Ragnar. Like he treated women like bitches, pretty much.
He did.
He got angry when women and men were, mistreating Lagertha, but he did the same fucking pimp shit.
He pretty much was Ragnar in that regard.
Yeah.
He bounced around. Was it Torvi, Gunhild?
Ingrid.
Yeah. There's been a slew of them.
A slew, yes. Most suitably a slew.
And he wasn't a good father either.
He was a terrible father. Oh, would we say Ragnar is a terrible father?
Yeah.
He was pretty absent.
He was an absent father.
Hey kids, I'm going out for a pack of opioids. I'll be back.
Because I don't think he saw the 4 kids until they were like all grown when he did come back to Kattegat.
When he was like, who wants to be king?
And then seeing Ivar crawl around and being like, oh, you are recognizable.
I couldn't miss you, my son. And that's when Sigurd was still alive. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Man, I don't think I would be able to recognize the actor that played Sigurd. He barely got any time, the poor guy. Let's talk a bit about Bjorn's orbit. We did talk about in the first episode covering 1 to 5. We talked about him and Halfdan in Morocco having their fun little adventures where they were eating very rare delicacies. I want to talk about him and his conflict between King Harald.
Harold wanted to be king of Norway.
Yeah, but
He'd gone about it since he was introduced into the show.
Yeah,
it was his thing. So for it to be promised by Olaf to Bjorn, he was like, "That's a betrayal. I'm the one who's been beating this drum for all this time."
Yeah,
he felt a way about it, and we knew how he'd manipulate everyone around him to finally be him.
Well, I think it's also because he did have that inadequacy, truly, but in his sort of feeling towards Ragnar. And the fact that Ragnar has died, but he's still feeling the effects of the popularity of Ragnar. What King Harold wasn't realizing, he was discounting how much the people loved Bjorn. It wasn't just because he was a son of Ragnar. He grew into his own identity and gained the respect of the people.
Yeah, he'd done a lot in that regard. You know, he'd even adventured and done his own missions. And for Harold, like, he was just super jealous.
Yeah.
You know, if a woman was interested in Bjorn, he'd be like, no, I want you just because.
Yeah. But even with his brother, he got jealous as well. It was weird. I think he just didn't get enough attention. He didn't get enough hugs.
Yeah, and I think one of the most telling thing, at least for him, is when it came down to Bjorn and his brothers, Bjorn couldn't put himself to kill one of his own.
Yeah.
But that's the difference where Harald did. You know, he killed his brother. And when they're having that conversation, he was like, yeah, I couldn't do it. And, well, mate, you did.
Yeah.
So it just showed you that contrast of maybe he does regret it. He does regret it. He's super alone now. Because he doesn't have a confidant. He doesn't trust Bjorn as far as he could throw him. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those moments where you realize that there's nothing for him other than just being a conniving piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much. He was a sad little man, and I guess he didn't realize he was a supporting character, if you'll pardon the pun, and he thought he was the Tennant protagonist, right? But I guess in relation to Tennant, he had it all backwards. Am I a film podcaster, motherfuckers? But yeah, Bjorn also had a very beautiful moment in the series, and he really lived and fulfilled the prophecy, because all throughout the season, people were like, Ironside. It was like Remember the Titans, but it was Remember Bjorn. Ironside.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
Love me a Denzel, I'll tell you that much. Let's go to the next character. I love Bjorn and I'll always love Bjorn. But aside from Bjorn, Ivar is my fucking favorite. He's my absolute favorite. Go and check out El Hoyo, the platform for English speakers, including myself, or really any moments where we talk about social class or any sort of underdog story. Because once I'm bought into the premise, I am ready to go in a bloody bloodbath. And that is exactly where I am with Ivar. What do we think Ivar inherited from Ragnar? His ruthlessness?
I think Ivar was more ruthless than Ragnar.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not sure what Ragnar saw in Ivar, because we know that Ivar's the only one that agreed to go with Ragnar at the end.
Yeah. And he made him the little crutches. Yeah.
So in that regard, they had this weird sort of relationship. But to me, I feel like his ruthlessness was way more than what Ragnar had. He didn't care who he stepped on.
Yeah. Be
it his brothers, be it Lagertha. They don't fucking care.
It was cloak and dagger shit.
Exactly. And I don't think Ragnar would ever do that, because he was more about family, get some land, settle down. He never got to do that. He never got to achieve that. And he was all just forced into weird battles all the time, you know? And I don't know, what do you reckon he got from him?
Well, it's exactly like you're saying, you know, at the center, we have Ragnar, and all of his qualities are drawn out of his sons. So the good or the bad sort of qualities that he had never fully got realized. The same way you said he was looking for land to settle in, never fully got realized. He did have a very morbid approach to things. He had a terrible way of treating people. And really, the only example of the Blood Eagle that we saw in this series was from Ragnar.
A deserved Blood Eagle, though.
Oh, absolutely deserved. Deserved and well learned if you're nasty. But what I'm saying is Ragnar did have that quality to him. He has all of the qualities that his son has, but I don't think they were taken as far. They weren't fully realized because he didn't have a full life, right? His life was cut short. So in that instance, I would say that Ivar did go further than what we saw Ragnar do, but it wasn't necessarily out of the realms of what Ragnar could have done if he had continued. And you also forget that Ivar is also very smart, and anyone that had any sort of military strategy held no candle to Ivar.
True. He did get yeah, maybe that's what he got from Ragnar, because I think his ruthlessness was just amplified to a degree where I thought it's a unique feature to him.
But didn't you see that Ragnar got Ivar to his final form, saying, fuck everyone else, you know who you are, let yourself be who you are.
True. And it was one of those moments where he'd lost Athelstan, and that just drove a spanner in the works, and it just demotivated him to shit. You know, he did not know, he'd lost a lot of faith in everything that he believed in.
I'm going to do a Twitter poll. Did Ragnar love Athelstan more than you love Christianity? Because I'm not sure.
Athelstan was Ragnar's day one, mate.
Oh, wow.
But he did get his military chops because Ragnar was intelligent as well. That's an aspect where, yeah, I could see that.
Oh, absolutely. Ivar kind of explores the Silk Road, and we see Prince Oleg the Prophet as well as Prince Igor.
Man, Oleg, eh?
Yeah.
He was a problem. He was a big problem.
But he was giving me like muy caliente Oberyn vibes, like Pedro Pascal vibes.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I aroused and scared at the same time?
I didn't get the arousal, but yeah, I could see the Oberyn vibes. It's just more that he was so manipulative.
Oh, yes.
You could not trust anything he says.
Well, I'm pretty sure one of the first speeches he gave to Ivar was how he killed his own wife. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And he got a wife that looks like Ivar's ex.
Yeah.
He was always playing mind games.
Oh, absolutely.
You never really understood where he stood or what he believed in and what he wanted to achieve.
And he didn't care about Igor. Like, he was just keeping him around to have that sort of
he could have the title.
vicarious power. Yeah.
Yeah, he tortured his own brother. Like
The way he treated and tortured his brother, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
He was a problem. And but I feel like Ivar was able to handle him.
Yeah, but
Any other brother, no chance, bruv.
But at that time when we introduced to Oleg, I'd already fallen out of this Ivar loving. I was like, mate, I'm ready for Ivar to just disappear.
But did you ever fall in love with Ivar? I feel like you didn't. I feel like you didn't get a chance, and then he killed Sigurd and you're like, fuck this kid.
No, he was always toying about, and by the time he'd reached Oleg, he'd waged war against his own people.
Yeah.
You know, he'd done a lot of shit. He killed the seer. He was high off his own fumes. And he thought he'd gotten this girl pregnant without even sleeping with her. Like, the aspects of Ivar that I was like, mate, you are intelligent. You're supposed to be this brilliant mind. And you keep on falling for such ridiculous things.
Well, I think because he didn't really get to develop his sexuality. And I think that was a big sore spot for him.
But then, why let someone use you like that?
Because for that one moment, he felt like he satisfied a pretty gal.
Maybe so, man. Like, the way he turned against his own people, killed a lot of people who dared question him. I'd already fallen out of this Ivar loving. And by the time he got to Oleg, I was like, mate, you deserve this guy. Because this guy is way more manipulative and vindictive than you are.
Yeah, but he got the upper hand on Oleg.
He did.
I feel like you're painting my Ivar in a terrible light.
He did some shit.
Yeah, but so did everyone else except for Ube because he's fucking useless.
No one did as much shit as Ivar.
But he felt pain.
Mate, he always felt, he had everything to prove from day one.
Yeah.
He had to prove everything that he's worth. He had to prove he had the tactical knowns. He had to do all these things. And I understand, there's a lot of resentment. I get that. But for you to cast aside everything else and everything, it doesn't even matter.
No, it's in spite of everything else. All of the mountains that were ahead of him, he overcame them, actually. How dare you? Ivar has the best story arc in Vikings.
Oh, man.
Because as much as we love Bjorn, he was born into greatness. Having Ragnar as a dad and Lagertha as your mother, you were born to succeed. Like you said, it was pretty much laid out for him that he was going to inherit Norway, right? Ivar wasn't given that. He's that villain, but he's villainized because of what people see he doesn't have. All of his shortcomings. Anytime he tried to color in the lines, no respect.
He didn't even try to hold the crayon. He wasn't coloring anything. He saw the crayons lying on the table. It was like, fuck that. I'm going to use my knife instead, I don't know. I don't know why you love him so much.
Because I can see beyond the DC editing that there was humanity to Ivar's character.
Just the only thing that he showed his humanity is in his dealing with Igor, where I don't think we saw him care about anyone as much as he did the kid.
Because he saw a kid that was vulnerable and no one was looking after him. He projected his feelings onto the kid.
And that's the only moment that I saw him being truly vulnerable and him caring about someone other than himself. But at that point, he'd already lost everything. So what is the challenge in that? The most difficult thing would be when he was king of Kattegat, for him to care that much.
Okay, let me 60-minute soundbite you, if you're nasty. Do you believe that any other brother had gone through more worse shit than Ivar did and constantly work his way back up after continuously being knocked down and knocked down? Do you believe any other brother had gone through the shit that Ivar did?
No.
Well, come and sit on my lap and I'll show you some love then, because there you go. The Wire reference. I feel like we're at an impasse. The only other thing is you kept saying Ivar Lovin, and I have an idea for a spin-off of Grease with Ivar Lovin.
Ivar Lovin. So, are we going to talk about Ube?
Why do I share these notes with you? I could have easily just taken Ube out.
He is...
Oh, fuck off. Look at you trying to prepare yourself to say the biggest lie in TV history.
Oh, he is the closest thing to Ragnar on the show.
Visually, yes.
Visually, intellectually, not so much the warrior aspect of it. I think Ube was quite crap being a warrior. He was competent enough, fine, but he wasn't their best.
Visually, he looked like Ragnar.
Let's move on. But that's not what I mean.
Let's move on.
From Ragnar's passion and what we knew of Ragnar for all those seasons, he's the only one that I really, really understood and took that on board.
Ube is season 1 Ragnar, where he enjoyed being a farmer. The end. That's Ube.
He's the only one that was willing to carry out the father's vision.
No, but then again, there were so many facets to Ragnar, so you can't reduce Ragnar to that. There were so many different facets of Ragnar.
But the overlaying and the fundamental aspect of him.
But there was Ragnar the Navigator, where he invented the compass. That's Bjorn. There's Ragnar waging war inside and outside of Norway. That's Ivar.
But those are 3 episodes out of the fucking season. The rest of it was him trying to find himself and try to understand why he was here. And no one does that more than Ube.
Do you remember the name of the Jonas brother that no one remembers?
Pizza or some shit?
The court restaurant. His name is Kevin Ube Jonas. And he is not married to Priyanka Chopra Jonas.
Oh, wow.
No, Ube is useless. But if I could live one of the brothers' lives, I would live Ube's life. Just living in the land and minding my business and having no dramas for the rest of my life. That's as much credit as I can give to Ube.
No one uses his head more than him. I think he thinks about things critically. And even when they'd found the new land, they'd met up with the Native Americans, only he could understand the implications of that. Only he could understand the implications of finding this new land with so much resources.
That wasn't theirs.
And neither did he want to colonize.
Got me, I'm a mustache twirling, colonizing villain.
And, it made sense that he's the one to find Floki. Because I think part of Floki was understanding his limitations, because we knew Floki was super flawed. Floki was one of the worst characters for the past 4 seasons.
Okay, you're saying the worst things about Floki and the best things about Ube, and I don't care for it, sir. I do not care for it.
Mate, Floki was all about the gods.
Like Ivor, I will not stand for this.
Floki was all about the gods, and to his detriment. He lost Ragnar's love because of that nonsense.
He lost his wife and his kids.
Mate, he killed Athelstan, and we knew that just killed whatever feelings Ragnar had for him.
Bravo. Encore, Floki. Encore. Alfred is still alive and kicking. Go and find him. Well, we already shared our thoughts about Floki and how he fell out of favor with Ragnar, but it was nice seeing Floki again. I must say I did get tearful seeing Floki, because we didn't think we would see him again. Right? Especially everything that kicked off in Greenland.
Yeah. It was really mysterious, his disappearance, especially when we thought that he'd probably become the new seer. And then
Yeah.
because there's a lot of hinting around that. And I expected him to fulfill that role, especially when Ivor killed the seer. But we never got that, because he just disappeared up until the last episode.
Well, I guess he wouldn't become the seer now, because pretty much everyone disbanded, the Viking mythology, except for Ivor. Ivor was really the only one that clung to it, even in death.
We see Ube realizing that, maybe not the old ways don't work here, and they need to start a new chapter. And like you said, even when he had a chance to do the Blood Eagle, he thought better of it. He was like, yeah, not going to do that now. It's time to start anew and just become different and new people.
Yeah, because delivering a Blood Eagle's got to fuck you up, surely.
Yeah.
Just rounding out Ube, we do love Torvi. It was sad to see one of their kids die, when we reference back to Lagertha in the houses away from everywhere. And that was due to the hands of the men that was spared their lives, but with disgrace, because ideally you want to die so you can enter Valhalla.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to talk a little bit about Flatnose, and I want to talk about our man, Titus Pullo, Blackbeard, or in Vikings, Othere.
Well, we get to see this mystery of where Floki is. We think Flatnose had something to do with it, but we don't really understand his motivations. We know he wants to be king because he feels like, I'm deserved. It's my right. And it's one of those things that, it's just pride.
He would be like one of those people dwelling in the wilderness with Moses in Prince of Egypt.
Yup. But it makes sense that he makes a lot of decisions that are just self-centered.
Oh, yeah.
A whale washes up. A fucking whale. And he doesn't even want to share that shit because it landed on this side of the land.
And even when it makes no sense, when you can't even eat it all before it goes bad.
Yeah.
So just share.
Yeah. I really didn't care for him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think it also highlights that there's always one motherfucker in the crew that, thinks they're better than the others and is in some way entitled to it.
Yeah.
It was nice seeing our Titus Pullo, though.
Yeah, it was. He was quite the mysterious man in this.
Oh, as always in my dreams, OT.
Because you don't understand why he knows so much information about everyone and everything.
Yeah.
And he seldom gives anything away. And we get to see...
Don't try and Raiden him. I love Titus Pullo or Othere. Don't try and make him a Raiden in this.
No, he wasn't a Raiden. He wasn't to that extent.
Oh, good.
But we do see the clash between Ube fully not understanding or knowing that there's definitely something wrong here. He couldn't really trust him that much because he would only tell the truth that made sense at the time.
Yeah.
He would be like revealing the truth at a snail's pace.
Oh, absolutely agree. Let's finish off with, I wouldn't say the lesser of the sons, but in regards to character development.
I'd say the lesser.
All right. But we did just talk about Ube. Let's talk about Itzvek. And I will say he inherited, well, first of all, Ragnar's opioid addiction. But like you were mentioning before, yes, Ragnar had an addiction, but it wasn't to the point that Hitzvek had, right? But I do believe that everyone had the traits of Ragnar. They just continued to live on in those traits. That wasn't so good. But Hitzvek, I would say, is the best warrior out of the brothers. Because if you see them actually fight, Hitzvek is really that guy.
Wow, you really did get a discounted version of Vikings.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we've all heard of Drunken Master. He's your drunken master.
Man, Bjorn would decimate him in a second.
Nah, bruv. Nah, bruv.
What are you on about, man?
Nah, bruv.
Wow. We'd call Billy Blanks and he'd wipe the floor he hits back.
Are you done? Are you most welcome? Hitzvek is the best warrior. I don't know why you can't compliment. You seem to compliment Ube for no reason. So
Nah, Hitzvek just had a problem. He couldn't understand who he was.
There was still value in him, though.
He was a journeyman. Like he was always looking for himself, who he was, what was his purpose. And I wouldn't say him being a warrior was that, because he wasn't.
Well, Ube stopped looking for himself because he didn't like what he saw. You see how this is not productive, my love?
He always tried to do something unexpected, at least to push himself to find out more about himself. Like choosing to go with Ivar instead of Ube, even though he didn't make sense to him.
Yeah, but what you're not understanding about Hitzvek is he had value, and you don't understand that he has value. The same way that Bjorn had his vices with women, Hitzvek had his vices with drugs, but he was still dutiful as a warrior. Go back and watch it. He was the warrior of the brothers.
I wouldn't say that, but...
Yeah, but you've been wrong many times. And you'll continue to be wrong many times.
No, I take your point. I disagree with it, but I take it.
You don't need to take my anything, thank you.
It's just one of those things that, we get to see him go through this phase of mourning and drug addiction and not really doing much. We see him being tortured and traumatized by what Ivar did to his lover.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thora.
Yeah. And he's just keeps on playing over and over and over in his mind. When he killed Lagath, I was like, yeah, of course it's this bitch ass person to do it. I wouldn't take it as him being a warrior, even though he was in a fucked up state. It's just one of those things, like it was the least expected sort of brother. I'd put even Ivar above Hitzvok in terms of being a warrior.
That's...
You can accept my hot takes now.
Did you come here for nuance and quality, friends and lovers? Because apparently OT can only offer whatever the fuck he's offering right now.
Fact.
Just because you say facts.
So going back to Hitzvok.
Mm-hmm.
It was good, at least at the end of it, seeing Ivar die. We see him embrace or give up the old ways and getting, I wouldn't even say embrace, like, he was like, maybe he did it to survive, to do something different. He reached a crossroad. We saw him, I don't think we saw enough of him contemplating religion or questioning the gods for him to switch and make it seem as if it was always in his mind. Maybe it was just a thing that he thought, might as well. I've lost my brothers. What the fuck can I do now?
All right. Since Unfortunately, this will be the last time we're talking about this show. Michael Hurst is working on Vikings Valhalla. So we will definitely pick it up from there. But that will be 100 years after the setting, or the golden age, as Queen Ingrid said in the narration. So let's finish off with our general thoughts, general feels in regards to Vikings overall, and then we'll finish off in our last segment. OT.
I loved it. I think it's one of the shows, just because we were given in bits, we tried to extend it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that when we started watching it, we could binge the whole thing. But then even at binging, it felt really sad going through the episodes and realizing the things were slowly winding down. And we kept on taking breaks just because of all the emotions and the feels. It's been such a big part of where we've done, what we've done as a podcast, and where we started, or where we introduced, or what I introduced to Katie before all this to start watching. So everything was coming to a close, and it was emotional. And it's just one of those shows that if you've reached this point and you've not watched it, give it a go, because you can't go wrong with it. And albeit there's some people out there that will claim it's historically inaccurate.
Yeah, Tom of History of Aotearoa.
You're not here for that. I think part of it is to have that entertainment value, and it brings that in tenfold.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin Ube OT Jonas. Yeah, I echo everything that OT said. It is a wonderful series, much better than It's a Wonderful Life. It's
How do
actually,
you even compare the two, mate?
because one is wonderful and one is actually, it's not bad. It's just not a Christmas film, which we've talked about.
Hell.
If you want to treat yourself, if you want to tantalize yourself, this is absolutely the series to do it. I feel like you've audibly blood eagled yourself if you've listened to our first episode and this and you haven't watched the show. But your Jonathan Rhys-Meyer's penance is that you'll promise to watch the show anyway. And please make sure you report back once you've done that as well. OT the Seer will know if you're nasty.
Yeah, I'll come and lick your hands to see what you've done.
I thought it happens the other way around.
Oh, yeah, actually. Well, that's just an added bonus.
You're giving your licks for free.
I love the licks.
We do love the licks, and let's just get into our next segment. There's nothing else to say there. We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference, Licky OT.
I've been thinking hard about this, and I think one of the shows that I hold in such high regard is Rome. It has, yeah, it's 2 seasons long. It's really, really, really good. Give it a go. You won't be disappointed.
It also taught OT how to flick the bean and lick the bean.
Yeah.
What licks my bean is Spartacus. We do have an episode on Spartacus. Make sure you go check it out. Splooshy award-winning Spartacus. And I am absolutely sure we will be covering Rome very soon. Right, my love? Mm-hmm. All right. If you want to learn more about licking seers and beans and all of that sort of nonsense on Twitter and Instagram, we're at For Your FPod.
Write us an email at hello@forpodcast.com.
We're also on Uber Shitbags podcast if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Skål!